Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora, and welcome everyone to the University of Technology of Sydney for the Speakers Institute Corporate Showcase. It is the fifth and final showcase of our global tour for 2022. Hooray! Hey! So nice to have you all here tonight as we talk about the future of leading people and culture. I'd like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, elders past and present. And I want you, for me, I like to consider this, where do my roots come from? When I think about an acknowledgement to country, I'm thinking about where do I come from? And for me, I come from New Zealand. And we have this beautiful word called whakapapa. And a whakapapa is a journey from, I want you to think of it as kind of like a sense of DNA. And it's an unbroken chain of DNA from our ancestors who roamed the land early on, like they did with the First Nations here in Australia. And the intertwined of DNA is collecting different voices and people that you connect with along the way. And it comes right through to the present and then onto the next generations that we'll never meet. And I love that beautiful connection for me to where I grew up in New Zealand, the whakapapa, to where we are here in Australia and the importance that we place now, which should have always been there, on our First Nations who paved the way, so to speak, with their footprints in the sand and across the desert and the way they blessed the waters. For me, we have a great opportunity here to really make a difference around how can we support the future generations that we never meet through understanding the pioneers and our ancestors who have brought us to this beautiful place where we are today and to create a beautiful space in the future. In New Zealand, we have this word called whānau. And whānau means family. And I wear a pin tonight, which is called whānau, and it's umbilical cords intertwined together. And it means that we arrive as strangers, but we leave as family. And so it's beautiful to have you all here tonight. Some of you we have known for some time, some of you are new tonight, and it's so good to see you all here. But as we leave tonight, we are one as family. And I look forward to greater connections with you. Now, we're speaking around the future of leading people and culture tonight. And when I reflect back over the last couple of years in discussions that we have with different HR leaders and C-suite people around the world and kind of dive deep into what are people talking about in regards to the future of work, the future of people, there are 5 key things that keep shining through that people want and desire in this world. And the first one is happiness. We want to be happy. We want to enjoy the place we are in. We want to be happy in the work that we do. But what does happy really mean? Does happy mean flexible work for some people that just want to work 10 hours a week and they want to work from the beach or wherever they like? Or for some people, are they happiest when they're working 80 hours a week and so passionate and enthralled about making a difference in the world? And I think we need to be careful about that because the world is kind of shifting to that space where we pigeonhole people into happiness is all about flexible working and people having the opportunity to work with their life. Well, that's not always the case. The second one is freedom. We want the freedom to remove the mask. We want freedom to be able to make decisions and be free in the way that we may want to work or interact and collaborate with other people. But it's different for each person. So that's where it makes it a bit of a challenge. How can we ensure that people have the freedom to express who they are? To be able to be in positions where they can work in their best situations and be productive and effective. The third one is purpose, and we talk about purpose a lot. What is our internal purpose? How does that connect to the purpose of the company? How does that connect to a purpose of the greater good of society, of human beings? The fourth one, and welcome, John, thank you for joining us tonight, is around collaboration. And I know we talked a lot about collaboration with Ashuria earlier this year, but collaboration, if you think about it, the most successful people in the world didn't do it by themselves. No one has ever achieved great success on their own. There was always a team around them. And as human beings, we like to interact and collaborate with people. So how can we create those opportunities to collaborate more effectively, more often, whether internally or collaboration with other people? You know, at Speakers Institute Corporate, we collaborate with a whole lot of people who own their own businesses, who come and work for us, and we work together to be able to inspire great leaders around the world. We collaborate with companies to go, how can we co-create a learning experience that is tailored to you? But the fifth one, and probably the most important one, and we've talked about this already, the theme, when I talked about whakapapa, you know, it's around a sense of belonging. As I mentioned, it's an unbroken chain or unbroken strand of DNA that everyone's interactions come with. But what is the sense of belonging? Now, who knows Malcolm Gladwell? All right, Malcolm Gladwell, famous for Outliers, writing the book Tipping Point, and a few others. Quite famous in what he's done. Very good writer. But I want to share with you something he said, and you can take this however you like. But he recently had on a podcast the diary of his CEO. And he was adamant, like true conviction from deep inside his soul, that you can't create a sense of belonging in a workplace and a culture if people are not in the office together. Fascinating. You cannot create a sense of belonging in a culture unless you are physically together. Now, I'll leave you to kind of ponder on that, whether you agree or disagree. But for us at Speakers Institute Corporate, we formed entirely remotely from day one. And I know I've never felt a greater sense of belonging than I do with our team, and for many of them, they've never felt that before. Entirely remote. This is one of the rare times where I get to spend time with them. So it's a question out there around how can we create culture? If we're a big company, for instance, and you've been around for 200 years, and you went from working in the workplace, you know, you're in the office, to now be in a position where COVID comes and suddenly you're remote, I get why people may want to leave, because the way things happen change. The culture is going to change. It's very difficult to maintain and sustain a culture when you have a very big company. And even try to change that. How do you connect with everyone? But for a very small company, you can change that culture really quickly. So everyone's in a different position. You know, so happiness looks different to people, freedom looks different to people, the purpose of organizations and individuals changes and evolves and is different with each person. Collaboration looks different, and so does a sense of belonging and how you curate that. But my encouragement to you is to think about how can you create that space where people feel like they belong? Because we've all been in those situations where we feel excluded and we don't feel like we belong. So how can we create those spaces? Now, you may have heard the term, people are our greatest assets. Sounded good, great for the time. But I disagree with the wording of it. Not the intention of it, but the wording of it. And the wording of people are our greatest assets can actually exclude a lot of people rather than include. Because as human beings, we are not assets. We're not a transaction on a balance sheet. We are human beings. So I would encourage you to look at changing that to people are our greatest priority. Because we're not working with assets. We're working with human beings who have human lives, and it's our role and responsibility as leaders to ensure that people feel included and feel like they belong and they are treated as human beings. I'm going to shift a little bit here. And before I do continue on with this, so tonight you're going to experience a whole different range of our facilitators. And we're going to be talking about the future of leading people and culture. But along the way, we're going to share ways, some of our ideas and perspectives, and not really our beliefs, but just give you some ideas to think about in regards to the future of leading people and culture. But also share with you ways that we can help support you in creating those spaces inside your organizations for people to thrive, people to feel like they belong, people to feel like they cared for. And so you're going to see a range of different things throughout the night. But I want you to think about your leadership. And all of you in this room are leaders. And I want you to think about what effect does your leadership have? What is the gravity of your leadership? Are you creating a gravitational push or a gravitational pull? In how you lead, are there moments in time where you are pushing people away, or are you pulling them in? Because to create a sense of trust and belonging, we must create that gravitational pull where people come towards us. And as part of when we think about our gravity of leadership, I want you to think about how can we be relentless in our pursuit of our excellence, in our pursuit of what we're trying to achieve in our organizations, our companies, what we're trying to achieve for humanity. And so important to be relentless. But how can you be relentless without being ruthless or reckless? How can you be relentless in your pursuit of excellence without being ruthless or reckless? So let's have a look at what these mean. So relentless is a non-stop commitment. Doesn't mean we go 24/7. It means that we're putting everything in place to ensure that we can achieve it in a high-performing mode. So that means we need to take recovery. We don't want to be working all the time. We need our brains fresh. We need our people fresh. So how can you be relentless to make sure that you can achieve the outcomes in an effective manner? But without taking no prisoners, without affecting people. Yes, we can run fast and go in this direction, but if everyone's chasing our tiles or running in the opposite direction, it's not going to serve our purpose. It's going to prevent us from achieving the outcomes we're looking for. But then reckless, where you're careless of consequences. Now, to give you an example of this, everyone know Jacinda Ardern. Okay? Relentless in her pursuit of creating a country that is happy, that is thriving. But she didn't do it in a way that would leave people behind or that would have careless consequences. She always had their heart in mind. She may not have achieved everything they set out to do as in a government. That's okay. But she was relentless in that pursuit. Let's say we now look at Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, very relentless in his pursuit of delivering outstanding products for the consumer. When he was younger, he was quite ruthless, but he wasn't in his later years. He would look after his people a lot more. But he was quite reckless at times where he was kind of, how can they really push the boundaries? And then we look at Elon Musk. He may be considered as all three. He's relentless in his pursuit of putting people in space, of creating electric cars. But at what cost? He's had 3 marriages, his 2 teenage sons don't talk to him, and most of his employees don't really enjoy working there. And now he's just told them that if you're going to work at Tesla, you have to be in the office. If not, bye-bye. He's only worried about him. Maybe it's the only way he can create a sense of belonging. But my encouragement to you is to think about how can you be relentless as a leader without being ruthless or reckless. What is the gravity of your leadership? Are you creating a gravitational push or a gravitational pull? I'll leave you to sit on that. We're going to bring through our first facilitator for tonight. He's an award-winning physicist. He was the youngest ever chief analyst at Citibank at the age of 27, and the only vegetarian to lead barbecues galore. Please welcome, speaking all about relationships, Demian Curry.
Hooray.
Thanks, good buddy.
How we all doing? I'm saying, how are we all doing? Hey, good. It's so good to see so many of you again. I've met so many new people. It's just wonderful. It's all about the relationships, right? Like for years, we've been hearing, it's all about the relationships, right? You ever heard that? It's all about the relationship, business relationships, economics, people do matter. Here's the problem that I've got. I've been in professional life for 43 years. That's it. 43 years. But does anybody else remember the Beatles in Australia? Oh, you do so. Come on. Okay. 43, exactly. Now, I've been around in all my professional life. I have never been told what a good business relationship is. Like, what is it? Like, we know it's important, but what is it? That I've got a problem. So, in this session, it rises and falls on relationships. We are going to answer this question. We need to finish the sentence. You know you have a great business relationship when? We're going to finish this sentence. I'll tell you when I realized how important business relationships are. I remember reading, I don't even remember where I read it. It was probably in one of the Malcolm Gladwell books, probably Blink, or one of the essays in What the Dog Saw, I can't remember. But it was about medical practitioners and their likelihood to be involved in malpractice litigation. Now, what do you think correlates most highly with the tendency or the likelihood that you're going to be involved in malpractice litigation? You'd think it'd be something like your scores at university. You'd think. Apparently, no correlation. Zero. Turns out you were least likely to be involved in malpractice litigation if your patients liked you, if they felt heard, seen, and understood by you. When you have a relationship, a quality relationship, it means not only do opportunities open for you, but it's amazing the number of mistakes that you will be forgiven. So what is it? How do you know? Like, we know it's important, but how do you know? How do you know you've got a great business relationship? All right, let's use some wisdom in the room. What I'd like you to do right now, break up into groups of 3 or 4, like half a table. What makes a great business relationship? You've got about 30 seconds. I want to know. Come on, break up. Talk it through. What makes a great business relationship? Fast game's a good game. $12 more seconds. 3.5 more seconds. Time now. Can we have? Cool, let's reconvene. I wouldn't mind hearing from a few people. I'm going to do. I'll just do a wondering. We won't do the mic. Okay. Can we have? Okay. As the eyes of the room are upon me and a hush slowly descends. Right. Okay. I wouldn't mind hearing from a few people. And just as I walk past you. As I walk past your table, I want you to throw out some key phrases. Okay, what great relationship. Yes. Listening. Thank you. Over here. What's a good one? Mutual respect. Thank you. Over here. What was some good? Understanding. Thank you. Find solution. Collaborative solutions. I love it. Over here. What have we got? A couple of ideas. Transparency is nice. Yes. Trust. Yes. Sorry. Over here. Great results. I love that. Okay. Care about the person. Oh, nice. Care about the person. Yes. Any more?
Action with integrity.
Sorry, say again.
Action with integrity.
Action with integrity and
Communication.
a bit of communication. That'd be nice. Bit of communication. Okay, one more? Trust as well. Beautiful. Humbly. By the way, can I get everybody to acknowledge each other? Thank you. Okay, thank you. That was a whole lot of fun. Humbly, I'm going to suggest this is the measure of a great business relationship. A great business relationship is when two people know and care about each other more than you need to get the job done. And my suggestion is everything that was said is contained within that. It's either precedent or antecedent or postcedent, which I'm allowed to make up words, by the way. But how do you do that? Okay, we know what the goal is. We know what the goal is. When two people know and care about each other more than they need to get the job done, but how do you do it? I have found in the conversations, there's two types of questions that we ask. Deep engagement question number one is when you're with people and you're talking about what's holding them back. And you ask something like, how bad does it get? And they go, oh, you're really bad. You go, no. Seriously. How bad does it get? And you find when they exhale and look down before answering, let me tell you, then you have engagement. You become a trusted confidant. And beyond holding them back, when you're looking forward, deep engagement question number two, when you say, well, what do you want to achieve? And you go, oh, look, I'd like things to be more efficient. And then you go, okay, beyond that, I want you to dream a little bit. If there were no limits, if you and I could do anything, what do you want to see? And you know you've got deep engagement when you find that they exhale. They pause and look upwards before answering. They access the dreaming part of the brain. They think, oh, wow, what do I want to achieve? I've never been asked that before. You become a co-creator of their future. And you know, this works for any kind of relationship. I've asked these kind of questions to the people in my team, to my peers, to my clients. I've asked these questions to my son, to my partner, Sarah. Because beyond the relationship zone is the insight zone. When they feel that you can articulate their problems and their dreams better than they can. That, my friend, is the essence of a relationship. Over to you, Craig.
Give Demian a big round of applause. The heart and soul of what we do is relationships, and it's really, really powerful. Now, how have we built or destroyed, hopefully not destroyed, how have we built, destroyed, amended, upgraded our relationships over the past couple of years if we've had to learn as leaders to not only interact and engage in person, but also online? And then in those situations where we're both online, in person, and doing both at the same time. So we're now going to have a panel session where we're going to discuss hybrid engagement. And I'm going to introduce three lovely people to the stage. The first one is Andrew Flannery. He is a lawyer. Very good. Speaker, and quite an incredibly talented musician and singer in his own right. Please welcome Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next one, Pavel Lapovsky. Pavel is a communications coach. He was originally born in Slovakia and has made his way across to Australia as an immigrant and brings a real diversity to our team. Please welcome Pavel Lapovsky. Welcome. And our host for this session, who is a change and resilient coach, consultant extraordinaire, is a wonderful, wonderful part of our team and an excellent facilitator. Please welcome Diane Mccabe.
Thank you, Craig. And thank you, Pavel and Andrew, for joining me on stage here. We are going to talk everything hybrid at the moment and have a little bit of an open conversation. I think Demian really demonstrated how important relationships are, and we can see the energy that we all soak up in a room. How can we transfer that type of energy now in the workplace? So, Andrew, I'm going to start with you with a question, first of all. For you, what was one of the most challenging things that you found going from being in the office, being in person with people that you had to work with every day, to then turning that on its head and going hybrid, having to work both online and in person?
Well, I really struggled. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 35 years. I'm a partner of Australia's largest legal partnership. We're a big firm with a couple of thousand people. And I've been involved in some of the biggest negotiations in the country. And I'm an influencer, not so much the try-on hall stuff, but the influence in negotiations. And I found it so hard because I know how to work a room, right? I'm reading the body language. And I know when the CEO raises his eyebrow, he's about to turn to me and say, it's your turn. So I, take out my sword and I get silence in the room. And I pause because, as you know, when you pause, it makes you look sexy. So I pause, and everybody's listening when I open my mouth and I speak. But online, oh my God, nobody's listening to me. I can't watch body language anywhere. And as soon as I pause for a moment, someone jumps in on top of me, and as soon as I'm about to make my killer point, it's all about, we can see you, but we can't hear you. You're on mute. It was an absolute disaster. In fact, I became so depressed that I let my hair grow and I stopped wearing pants. And it was truly a disaster. I thought my time at the top of the tree is finished. But what's happened over the last 2.5 years is we've realised in Speakers Institute Corporate, that with some upgrading of equipment and upskilling of the way to use this medium, that I can be a potent warrior again. So it's really my journey from irrelevance to potent warrior.
I think we can safely say that Andrew is bound to be quite potent, whether he is online or whether he is in person. Thank you, Andrew. Pavel, for you being a communications coach particularly, how did you find some of the work that you're encouraging people on how they can be more effective in their presence and their communication online?
It's very similar to what Andrew just said. Because we all know it's easy to imagine what I want to say, but once the line on the camera is on, we just change. Heartbeat is fast, breathing is different, and it's hard to talk. And it can be more challenging for some people, less challenging for others. So I think the first step to make sure that everyone is involved and included is to somehow make the level of their confidence in front of the camera the same, so they can express what they want to say. It's not only just about going quickly through the points I need to say and just switch off my camera, but really be there and be able to deliver what I want to say. So I think the same level of kind of understanding of online presentation for everyone is crucial to be able to communicate effectively.
Very good. I'm hearing some nods and some, I'm not hearing the nods. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
You're not on mute, I heard you. So when we're in that hybrid environment, there is no doubt that one of the biggest challenges that I think has turned from a challenge into being something positive is, and Andrew, I'm going to direct this to you because I know it impacts you in your organization, that those people who felt a little bit lost, who were in remote sites, now actually have a voice. They're starting to feel a little bit more engaged. What have you seen in your organization where people out in the more, that may not have interacted as much? How are they feeling as engaged? What has worked well for them?
Yeah. It's a hybrid answer, as everything is today. That the most amazing things happen. 2020, we're in the law, in the professional services area. I'm sure a lot of you are in the sort of information professional services area. And we had a more profitable 2021 than we did 2019. This working remotely actually really works. And I know for myself, it's incredible. You save all the time doing your hair and makeup in the morning and the time commuting to and from the office. And suddenly you've got an extra 2 to 2.5 hours of time when you can be doing billable work. So for people who are already well-trained, already part of the culture and the family of the organisation, it's an incredible opportunity to be working remotely at home. But we also had young lawyers who were coming through who we didn't see for their first 6 months. They had no engagement with the firm at all. When I learned as a lawyer, I shared an office with an astonishing partner who I still find myself saying things that were really, they're Paul's lines that I got in my first 6 months when I was sitting next to him. And for those people who are first coming through, they need to just be with you and to hear you. For the new people coming in who need to know the culture of the organisation, they need to know about it. And also for the leaders who need to pass on the culture and the learnings and the feelings, they need to be visible. So I think it's a real hybrid answer. And I think, who's in HR here? I know I was talking to Carmen earlier, and a lot of you. I think there's an emerging area of HR which is crafting individual solutions for people around hybrid working. What works best for you, and how do I monitor and how do I tweak it and adjust it over time? So it's not a single answer on this one, Diane.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, and we find that, and I think anyone who works in HR, we all know that very well, that we can't give a definitive yes or no. There are various shades of grey in between. I would love to throw out, are there any questions? We do have Narissa going around there with a mic. Any questions that anyone would like to ask our panel here in terms of hybrid working or even Speakers Institute and what we have experienced with our clients? Just raise your hand and Narissa will bring the mic around. You're all on mute. I'll just let you know. Put on your cameras. I can see you.
I think the internet's frozen.
We've got, yes. Alan, fantastic.
Always
you
happy
can stand up, Alan. We'd love to see you.
I am quite short. So, Andrew, you said about 2.5 hours people could work, but aren't people therefore going to get burnt? And surely 2.5 hours could be used for exercising, meditating, working, playing with fat kids. It doesn't have to be 2.5 hours billing, does it?
The truth is that it brings enormous flexibility. The days I take it home is when I've got an Amazon delivery coming and I want to be there to make sure I can sign for it. And it's fantastic for my associates who've got young children. They have been getting so sick, the kids in childcare this year. I don't know how you're finding it, but they're constantly having things, so they're taking the doctors. There's the biggest tyranny for senior associates with young children is having to be there by 6 o'clock to pick up the kids after childcare. And this working from home takes all of that away. So we need to change the way we do it. I'm not suggesting, Helen, that I actually want 2.5 extra hours out of every person, but that day can be segmented and stretched and changed. We also have to do it in a way that it's not your whole day. I mean, my friend's husband's a merchant banker, and as a wedding present, as an anniversary present, she said, the thing I want is that you look at me before you look at your mobile phone in the morning. We've got to turn that off, and that's part of the learning, that we're not spending all day on business. And that means chunking out some time, going dark for a while. But you're absolutely right. And Ergotronics, your company understands that the workplace is a place that has to work for people. Yeah, thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to finish this off with a quick fire question to both of you, which is, what is your number one tip that you would give to everyone here based on everything you've had in your work experience, of what you've interacting with your clients, with your colleagues, and the work you do with Speakers Institute? What is your number one tip for effective engagement in a hybrid environment? Starting with you, Pavel.
I think it has been said many times, but I love to repeat it. Don't read. because often people put too much energy into what they want to say. And if they are on the Zoom, they're thinking, hey, there's a screen in front of me, so if I have notes there and I'm going to read, I think it's just fine. But it's not fine at all, because each of us has our unique communication style. And if you polish it just a little bit, you can make your presentation much more entertaining and much more effective. But by reading, you kill all these opportunities. So I think if presentation is prepared well enough, you just need a few bullet points. That's it. And if you spend a little bit more time by polishing your voice tonalities and hand gestures, you can have much better effect on people who listen. So don't read.
Yeah, agreed.
Thanks, Pavel. And for you, Andrew, what's your number one tip?
There were two men camping in the Canadian Rockies. They had their boots off. They'd been walking all day. They heard the sound of a bear. So one man grabbed their stuff quickly and started heading off towards the trail. And he looked around, the other guy there was lacing up his running shoes. And he called back and said, "Do you really think you're going to outrun a bear?" And he said, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." And my message is, you don't need a $500,000 studio like Anthony Robbins at home to be great. You just need to be 5% better than your competition. But you have to be that 5% better or you'll fall behind.
Well, hopefully there are some pearls of wisdom and some tips that you can take away. Thank you, Pavel, and thank you, Andrew, for sharing your pearls of wisdom on hybrid working experience and what effective communication we can share with the team here. Thank you both.
Big thank you to our panel. Thank you very much. Diane, Andrew, and Pavel. We know how important it is to that hybrid engagement, how we connect with people. But we also need to understand how we are being received. A lot of people forget online that people are still subconsciously understanding you the same as what they would in person. You know, if you've got the laptop down and you're up here, then it's like you're talking down to someone. Has the same psychological effect as maybe a teacher talking down to them when they were a child. So to talk about how are you being received in those connections and that leadership and in those relationships with your team and the people inside your organizations, we have a wonderful facilitator who's going to come to this stage. She is an outstanding communicator, is our program design manager, has been facilitating for more than 20 years, actually gave our co-founder his first ever facilitating job. Please welcome to the stage, Jessica Kiley.
Good evening, all. Such a pleasure to be here and some familiar faces here as well. Now, tonight, it was about the future of people and culture and the immense change that we all feel is happening and is continuing to happen. But what hasn't changed, and we've seen it in all of these presentations and topics so far, what hasn't changed is the importance of communication. Whether you're online, whether you're hybrid, whether you're in front of people, whether you're having those deep engagement conversations, whether you're one-on-one, whether it's the C-suite, when it's your turn to present your ideas, what inspires you, when you're trying to get it from someone else and what inspires them. What actually sits at the core is really great communication skills. And why I bring that up in this particular topic that I've been asked to present on is because we do this a lot. And communication skills are still not great in a lot of organizations. And often we open up and we ask people when it's your turn to speak, when it's your turn to present, the number one thing they're worried about, what do you think it might be? Any guesses? There we go. What will they think of me? Who's thought that one? Everyone in the room should have their hands up, ladies, please. Hello. Okay. You're lying if you didn't put your hands up. It's a very natural thing to do. Yes? what I would like to encourage this evening is a different perspective to take when you catch yourself in that, because it will actually switch your perspective and have it be actually the question, how am I being received? Because instead of it being a self-conscious thing, which is much of a contraction feeling in our bodies, how am I being received is actually more expansive, and I get to stand on the other side a little bit. And if we master this tool, because it's the number one tool we control, no matter what change happens, this tool right here and our communication, we can handle whatever comes. And so I want to help us learn a little bit about some of those and reflect on where we're sitting at the moment in how we're being received. Because we often don't ask either, do we, other people? We don't ask. Sometimes we're a bit worried about what they might say. But we often don't ask because we get a little bit worried. So before I go into some things for you to look for, I want you to pull out your phones. You are allowed to use them. Okay. But I'm going to ask you to find the video part on your camera, on your phone, because you're going to video yourself. Selfie style, because it's the number one way for you to have a look at how am I coming across. Yes? Now, I saw you out in the foyer. You're very comfortable in front of the camera, okay? So for some of you, you're like, no worries, I've got this, totally. And there you go. Others, it's a little bit intimidating. We're using this for our own observation, okay? So I want you to, just 20 seconds, I want you to think to yourself, what's one standout idea or highlight from what Craig has said, what Demian said, notes that you wrote down, just one of them. And in 20 seconds, I want you to film yourself sharing that as if you were going to share it with your colleagues. So there was a key insight that really stood out for me tonight, and it was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I think it's really great and we should start talking about it. Something as simple as that. It's only 20 seconds that we're asking for. Key thing, make sure the camera is on your at eye level, because remember about how we're being received, if it's down here, it doesn't look so great. So holding it up, everyone. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you show this to anybody else, okay? It's just for you. I want you to press record and over to you. Just 20 seconds, one insight. Off you go. Come on, down the front here. Everyone needs to do it. Okay, that's 20 seconds, people. Those of you who want to keep going on and on and on. All right. Now, you'll get to watch that one afterwards, but I want you to observe even just how you're feeling about viewing yourself or putting yourself up onto a camera, because getting a little bit more comfortable in doing that is actually a really important skill going forward, just to be able to start sending a few video messages to colleagues, those who you want to build relationships with, a new connection on LinkedIn. But how are we being received? Because sometimes it may not be exactly how we want to be received. In general, in terms of our non-verbal communication, which other people pick up, can sit in either credible or approachable. It can be sort of one side or the other. Think about credible being a newsreader style, and approachable being more like the best teacher you've had, who were highly engaging in how they did it. Now, just thinking how you delivered just then, doing those, did you sit more on the credible side or like a newsreader at the moment? Hands up. More credible. Only one credible in the room. Right, you will, two, I would say so too, yes, right? And everybody else in the room sat on the highly approachable, likable side. Okay, good. Now, it's important, one, self-awareness, mastering this tool. And then we think to ourselves, the situation that's in front of me, the context that is in front of me, which side do I want to use? Because sometimes and why we want to ask some people how we're coming across, because sometimes if we do credible all of the time, it can sometimes push into intimidating. Now, if you can believe this, if you remember Demian's presentation, he was once described as intimidating. No. But once he learned that, he was able to start broadening the communication toolbox in a way. Yes? So if you're starting to sort of sit on this side, you're serious all of the time and it's coming across as intimidating, you're not going to be able to have those deep conversations with people. Similar on the other side. If we're accommodating and friendly and engaging all of the time, each time we speak, or we're really caring, it sometimes can go in the opposite direction. We're not getting offered some promotions along the way because that's how we're sort of naturally going. We become aware of these things and we can start shifting them. So now what I want you to do is actually bring out that phone again. I know. Because what I want you to do this time is two key things. I want you to breathe a little deeper when you do it and find a pause. Because no matter what in terms of your communication, those are the two key ones. Breathe deep, pause more, and that will help any form of communication that you're having. So pull out your phones. It's only 20 seconds. Choose another point. This time I'd want you to just breathe a little deeper and find a pause in there. Over to you. Go. Hold the camera up. Great. Okay, I can feel it sort of slowing down here. So my little challenge to you now, later on, is watch yourself afterwards and have a look. Am I sitting on either of these sides? Even ask some of your colleagues, how am I being received? Is that how you want to be received? And the more we ask ourselves that question and get some of that feedback, the more we sharpen this toolbox here and this particular skill. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so Jessica, a big round of applause again. Well done. Now, it's so important, obviously, that verbal communication, how we connect, and being comfortable in knowing that what we are saying is, and our non-verbals are actually connecting to what we are saying. But when we look at getting people to change, and when we look at the future of leading people and culture, it is all about change. Every day we are changing. Now, as we know in life, people generally don't change or don't do something or take action unless they can clearly see and see a visual. What does it look like? So to talking about how to achieve a clear vision, I'm going to invite up our next speaker. He was actually involved in the original first corporate programs that we did at Speakers Institute, many, many years before it became Speakers Institute Corporate. He's a communications expert who's worked with a number of speakers all around the world and lots of government people from some of the biggest companies on the planet. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Nick Harding.
Thank you. That's it? So you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Let's do that one again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Excellent. Whew. That's just, I'm not accepting that. I left accepting mediocrity in 2021. All right, achieving a clear vision. Show of hands. Put your hand up if you have ever been in a meeting and at the end of it you thought, this could have been an email. Yeah, we've all been there? Okay. There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because the person running the meeting hasn't thought about what the point of the meeting is. If they had, they would have included in the heading of their email and then job done. Yeah? So you've got to be in a situation where if a person leaves a meeting or if a person leaves a speech that you give, whether it's a town hall or an annual general meeting or whatever it happens to be, where they say, I know what the point of that was. Yeah? So how do we do that? Well, we do it by achieving clarity. So let's check this out. You need to get a clear objective. What's the point? What is the point I'm trying to do here? Imagine giving a speech, and at the end of giving a speech, and when I say imagine giving a speech, this is you and the girl who's hopefully not on Facebook. I'm sure you're writing notes. Imagine you've just, love it. Vindicate. I'm not that guy. I don't want to lose the audience in one fell swoop. But if you head all the way back in your mind's eye to 2016, what was Hillary Clinton's campaign motto for President of the United States of America? Okay, what was Donald Trump's? Excellent. Okay. Core, repeatable message. And for the person in the audience who thinks I'm voting for Trump, I'm not American. I can't vote for him. So let's move on. The point being, have a core, repeatable message. Now, the clear objective needs to be, what is your objective? What is your why, your purpose, the thing you want to get across, your motive? And the action needed is about them. What do you want them to think, feel, and do? And if you're like most Australians, you probably glossed over one of them. You probably said, well, I want them to think ABC, and I want them to do X, Y, Z, whether the do is send an email or say yes to an idea or fund a particular change initiative. The one that most Australians skip over is feel. You must have your audience feeling something, enthused, encouraged, inspired, concerned. You have to have them feel something, because feeling is the basis of change. Yeah? No one changes with their brain. We think about it, and then we do nothing. You got to make people feel. So, how do you achieve clarity? Well, you make sure you have to have one core, repeatable message. Yeah? How many? 7? No, 1. Okay, let's get one message, and it has to be repeatable. So, can I get a quick show of hands? And I will give $100 to somebody who can tell me what is the slogan for that shoemaking company. They're really, really famous. They sell a lot of shoes. I haven't finished the question yet. You're killing me. What is the slogan? $100 for the first person to tell me the slogan for ASICS. It's real hard. No one knows it. It's Latin, and it translates as a healthy body and a healthy mind. Yeah, well done. Don't be ASICS. Be Nike. Yeah? Just do it. Yeah? Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it clear, and that makes it repeatable. Next up, if you're looking for either an email headline or your next speech, imagine you had to put it into a book title. You're only really given 2, 3, possibly 4 words. If you want 5 or 6, you're human, because we all want to flesh it out. But imagine it has to sit on a book title. The next one is separate your work into 3 buckets. And you actually have to do this exercise. Many of you want to not do this exercise. You'll say, I get it, yeah. But if you do it, it'll be better. So the first one is the bucket of must know. What must your audience know? Fill that out. The second one is what should they know? Fill that out. And the last one is, what is interesting about your topic? And now, this is when you get the knife out and you start to kill not people, but some of your ideas, particularly this one. Yeah? That forces you to give them the best 2/3. Trim the fat. Okay, so the best way to trim the fat, the best way to make a point, the best way to have people listen to you, be engaged, and then make a change is to tell a story. A story is profoundly powerful. It's the way our brain thinks. It's how we make sense of the world. And for those nerds in the audience, don't self-identify, we know who you are. But for those nerds in the audience, 22 times. That's the statistic. 22 times is the difference between telling a person a list of items and wrapping that same list of items up in a story. 22 times more retention. What is a story? It's a way of visualizing an idea using people. I won't get you to put a show of hands, but when was the last time you told a change story? A story to your audience, to the team that you lead, but you didn't mention a person. That's a problem. You can't hug a case study. No one goes home and shares a bottle of Pinot Noir with a concept. People are people. That could be a tweet. Yeah, let's tweet that. People are people. So make sure that you visualize your idea through the prism of a person. Why? Because it makes sure that the brain is active and it anchors it in the part of the brain which is most sensitive to emotions and to visuals. So, I'm going to give you a very quick metric and then I'm going to finish up in 30 seconds. So here's the metrics. And if you wanted to take a photo, knock yourself out. We're not going to send slides. This is how you get people to know what they should do, to feel what they should do, and to actually take action. Because let's be honest, that's what it's all about. The first one is you describe the current situation. In the current environment, we have, well, who's here from HR? Great. From this table here, what is the biggest problem with HR at the moment? Okay, lack of people. How do you get talent from a talent pool which seems to be shrinking or they've got too many options? Fantastic. In the current environment, there is a lack of talent and we're starving to retain the talent we have. Yeah? Great. Let's move on. Mention the change. I'm proposing that we develop the talent within our organizations to such a degree that they can step up into management, leadership, and usher us into a profound future. Okay? And then paint a picture using people. Imagine Sally from this department. She's brilliant at her job, but she's overlooked because she has one great sin, and that is humility. But imagine if we were able, that's a joke by the way, imagine if we were able to enthuse, encourage and inspire, educate her in such a way that not only did she have extraordinary capability, but she also had the boldness to promote herself for the jobs that are going begging. And imagine if we could start to hire not from the external, but from the glorious internal. Makes a bit of sense? Okay, I'm going to fast forward this to the last one and go back one. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember one thing and one thing only, if you want to put one thing on your t-shirt, like a Just Do It t-shirt, let it be this. Story is your strategy. Thank you.
Come on, let's give it a hand. Hey, very good. Oh, wow, you are actually a lot better looking from the front. Just do me a favour, turn to the person next to you and just say thanks for being the best looking person in the room. Come on, do that for me, yeah? Thanks. All right, come back to me. So we actually have another a panel conversation that we'll be doing here, and I'm excited about this panel conversation because it is all about the future of people and culture. And so why not bring up two extraordinary people that you've already met. This is Craig Johns and Diane Mccabe. Yay! Woo! Thank you.
Hey.
So the first question I wanted to ask is just in and around the last 3 years. I mean, look, we've never, ever seen, change the way that we've all experienced. And not only that, obviously how much has this massively affected people and culture in general. So let's look back first, then we'll have a look forward. So the last 3 years, what have you noticed? What are we noticing? What are we doing now differently? Diane?
Oh, looking back, huge amount of stuff to go through there. We've all lived and breathed this. But when I look back, we went from, running around with lots of little projects and initiatives going on in our organizations, and we felt like we were humming along nicely. And then we got hit on every front. So not just we had to change how we worked, we had to change how we went to the shops, we had to change how we schooled our kids, everything. And from a leadership perspective, we're used to ushering people through change, and there might be one or two initiatives that are going on in the organization at a time. But all of a sudden, we had everything needed to change right now. And on top of that, people were struggling with everything changing back home as well. Yeah. So the greatest thing that came out of that is we were reminded of how adaptable we are as a species. There is no doubt about it. We all raised up. Totally plenty of war wounds, plenty of stories to be told. But we did it collectively. We're all here to tell the tale, or many of us are.
Yeah, and at first it was pretty difficult initially. And Craig, from your perspective as well, at the time you were running CEO Triathlon Australia, is that right? So when it does come to really navigating the last couple of years in a national CEO role, what were some of the challenges, and what did you notice in the last couple of years?
Yeah, very good. I mean, obviously we were working in sport, so we were unsure whether when events would occur, we'd have any money because we're all membership based. And so overnight, it literally started to dry up in the world of sport. So we were considering, are we actually relevant anymore? Yes, we need to be. People need to be physically active when we know how important that is for our mental health. But in the same sense, we're like, we can't give any opportunities. What's going to happen? How long is this going to be? Have we got enough reserves? And so we had to try and keep our people, I suppose, sane. We all went through that space of yes, comfort. Sure, we're going to keep you. We're going to keep you on the payroll. You're going to get paid. It's all okay. But in the back of their minds, they're going, well, hang on, you've got no races. Who's going to buy a membership? How are we going to actually fund this? Are sponsors even going to continue sponsoring? So from a CEO perspective, it was a very, very challenging space around, are we actually relevant anymore? And are we going to be able to survive as somewhat a species, as in sport? But one of the beautiful things is that it brought everyone a lot closer together. And so for me, I was able to leave the triathlon sport in a really safe space. We actually ended up with more reserves after 6 months than what we did prior, by being very clever around how we shifted things around. We never let anyone go. But then it was around, okay, how do we adapt and change the way that people can interact and engage through our medium of what we did as an organization? So it was about being very resourceful rather than resources. And I can honestly say, I'll go back to my family and growing up on a farm in New Zealand with the nearest neighbour being 1 mile away, and going to a school where we only had 26 kids in my first year there, from ages 5 to 12 and 7 at the end. We had to teach as students. We became very resourceful without the resources you would normally have in a schooling environment. And so from those places, I was able to transform that quickly into our own working environment, and then to create a couple of businesses at the same time.
We've actually heard earlier on, even for HR people here, that look, it's hard now to recruit, to find the right people. So then the question here is, what does it look like to be an employer of choice for the future? Diane.
I think, yeah, that's the $1 million question, and here it is for everyone in the room. It's like, I wish I could answer that for you. I wish I had that magic wand. Personally, like my role for many years, for 20 years now, has been supporting corporate organizations through change. So as an organizational change manager and as a coach. And for me, the key to managing change, so yes, we have to usher our organizations through lots of change. We have to mobilize everybody. But now it's down to the individual. And it's about, what do you need? What do you need? What's important to you? And, you know, as leaders and as HR professionals, it's impossible for us to know what every single person in the organization needs. But we can still have that as an aspirational thing that we want for each of our leaders in the organization to know about their teams and be able to support them through that. Because that will be evident as you're hiring people. That will be evident on the grapevine. People will know that, okay, you're valued, you're known. So it's not got to do with, you know, what is your employee value proposition in terms of all of your, you know, your vacation, all of your perks that you're, you know, do you have a gym on site? Do you have a, you know, the flexible workplace? It really is, what is it down to the individual and what's important to them.
And Craig, do you think technology will play a part in, you know, in a way, you know, building a positive culture in the workplace?
Now, this is fascinating, and I've had some discussions with some people in the room around this. And I love technology. I grew up as a scientist, and you know, technology was a big part of it. But the future of leading people and culture is not about technology. And sorry for the technology people in the room, it's not about technology. If people don't feel like they feel cared for, that their work that they do matters, that they feel like they can connect and belong, and we can have those important relationship discussions and interactions, the technology is pointless. Yes, it can add value, but it is not the core of the future of leading people and culture. And we're seeing that even more and more. People are not jumping from paycheck to paycheck because of technology. They're jumping from paycheck to paycheck because they're in a job where they just have to tick a box and get paid. But if you shift that to being cared for, and it's a place where they feel like they belong, and they truly know that the people believe in them because their work that they do matters, it's a game changer. But yes, technology can help, but it's the cream on the crop. If you don't get the 99% right first, forget the 1%ers of technology. It's not going to help, in my perspective.
Great. Hey, look, I could have the conversation for ages on this. And Craig, I do actually want to acknowledge you. For those people that don't know, Craig, over the last couple of years, is literally as soon as COVID started, he then launched Speakers Institute Corporate, and has been one of the fastest growing training companies in the world, which is quite extraordinary. And not only that, he's developed a phenomenal culture of team members, of facilitators, where literally, as you can see, we're facilitating all around the world. So you've done this really, really well, and I did just want to acknowledge him. Come on, let's give him a hand. I think it's awesome. All right, in closing, one statement. The future of people and culture, if there was one thing you wanted to leave everyone with, what would that one statement be? And I'm putting you on the spot here. Both of you, do you want some time? Or
yeah, no, I'll go straight in.
deep?
Yeah, I'm not even going to breathe deep
Yeah.
on this one. For me, it goes on what I've said already. It's individualization. So it's not herding the masses through everything, treating one size fits all. It's really seeking that individual and that one-to-one human connection with people.
It's great.
To me, it's about being an inspiring great leader who inspires great leaders through the way of showing that it's okay to not be right all the time. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay for you to show that all the people that you work for, that the work that they do matters and that you care for them.
Yeah, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Diane and Craig, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, we've talked about the importance of that sense of belonging, and When I mentioned at the start that sometimes we feel like we've been excluded, and we know how that feels, but there's other times where it feels absolutely amazing to feel included. And if we think about that, creating those cultures of connectedness, there are a number of different areas that go to the root of that in regards to how can we create a place that people feel like they're safe and belong to. And as part of that, we're going to talk about an approach to inclusive language. And to bring to the stage is a phenomenal human being who I have thoroughly enjoyed working with over the past few months. Brings a real, true, unique, and different way to her facilitating and her approach to life. She has an amazing corporate background in facilitating and working in corporate. Please welcome to the stage Narissa Trinidad.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Now, we've all been sitting here for about an hour or so, and we've heard from some incredible speakers tonight on some really great topics. Craig started us off with talking to us about the future trends and the gravity of leadership. We heard from Demian about relationships, and he got right amongst you. We've heard panels about the future of work and hybrid engagement and people and culture. Jessica spoke to us about how we are received, right? And then we heard from Nick about creating a clear vision and your story. Now, if you've been listening, don't worry, I'm not going to ask any questions, but if you've been listening, you're getting a sense that there is some themes that are emerging from tonight. Leadership, communication, future of work. Yep. Okay. But there's also an underlying theme to everything that we've been sharing with you tonight. And that is people and a deep sense of belonging. Now, if it wasn't for people, I wouldn't be up here. You wouldn't be sitting down here. We wouldn't be here. Because everything that we do revolves around people. And I don't have to look very far, as I'm sure you don't have to look very far. When just looking at this room, we can see that there is such a rich diversity and intersectionality, which is that layers of identity just around in this room. And when we look broader into people in our organization, the clients, our customers, the communities that we serve, and all of humanity, it's pretty much all surrounding us. So as leaders, and as people who are leading future leaders, and as Craig mentioned earlier, even leading people that we will potentially never even meet in generations to come, it is then our job to ensure that every single person feels heard, feels seen, feels recognized through everything that we're doing. And that when we, as people, are communicating, when we are leading, that we are saying to everybody this key message: welcome, you belong here. Welcome, you belong here. So I want to talk to you a little bit about belonging, because we said, the theme of this night is sense of belonging and people. And I want to talk to you about belonging. Actually, I'm going to get you to do something, okay? So humor me for about a minute or so, all right? I'm going to get you to close your eyes. Don't worry, I'm not going to get you to do anything weird. Just close your eyes, okay? And I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about a time when you felt a deep sense of belonging. And I acknowledge that there could be people in this room that maybe haven't felt that deep sense of belonging. And at times, I haven't as well. So I say, if you haven't felt that deep sense of belonging, then think about what would have needed to happen in that moment for you to feel that sense of belonging. And keep your eyes closed. But when you've thought about that moment, just give me a nod. Don't worry, I'm not going to come and ask you to tell me that. You can trust me on this one, but I just want to know that you've all got a moment. So just give me a nod, okay? Great. I can see you. I've got you. Now, I want you to keep your eyes closed, and I want you to go a step further and think about, in that moment, what created that sense of belonging for you? Was it something that someone may have said? Was it something that someone may have done? What was that feeling that made it feel for you that, look, I really belong here? These are my people. They get me. And keep your eyes closed. And when you've identified what that is, I want you just, if it's able to, just raise your hand and let me know. Again, I'm not going to come and ask you, so feel safe here. But just raise your hand. All I want to understand is that you've thought of a moment when you were feeling a sense of belonging, and then you've associated it with what has caused that sense of belonging for you. And if you've got that, I'd like you to raise your hand and keep your hand raised. Keep your hand raised. Keep your hand raised. All right. Keep your hand raised now, and I'd like you to just open your eyes and look around the room. Okay? So almost all of us here have either felt a deep sense of belonging, or we know what it means or what it's going to take us to create that deep sense of belonging. So as you leave here tonight, and in the weeks ahead, the days ahead, as you are interacting with your people, what are we able to do to ensure that every single person that we communicate with can feel what you just felt tonight right here in this moment? When you said and nodded to said, yeah, I felt a sense of belonging. And when you raised your hand and said, yep, I know what it takes to create that sense of belonging. So that every interaction we have now can now encapsulate that. And I know there are many ways to talk about inclusion, and I know that many of you sitting in the room here tonight that are probably working in the D&I space and have got initiatives going on in your organizations. But we couldn't stand here tonight and talk to you about leadership and communication without talking to you about how we approach that in an inclusive way. So I want to share with you just a few ways in which we can do that, starting now. The first way is to think about the person before their identity. Person before their identity. And I know that identity makes up who people are. And when we come at that from a place of acceptance and understanding, great. But we don't want that identity to be something that we box people in or judge people or label them by. So what do I mean by putting the person in front of their identity? Let me give you an example. All right, let's use me as an example, okay? I identify as a person of color. And you're thinking, what? Seriously, what gave that away, right? I know, I get it. Okay. Well, I'll share a funny story with you, okay? So I grew up in India. Now, when I grew up in India, I really didn't even think that I was a person of color. Because in India, everyone is a person of color with just a different shade. But when I came into Australia, I was all of a sudden a person of color. And sometimes in a room, the only person of color. Now, years later, when I came out, my identity and intersectionality then became a gay person of color. I have a wife, beautiful wife that lives and navigates life with a physical and mental health disability. And over the last year, I've been exploring my identity, and now I identify as being non-binary. Now, I am just one person in this billions of people that we have. But I could be that one person in your team, that one person who is your client, your customer, within your community that you are speaking to. And when we do that, it's really important that we put the person before their identity. So I am not an Indian person or a gay person. I'm a person who grew up in India. I'm a person who happens to be gay. All right? A couple of other ways that we can look at is by using terms that are universal and gender neutral, right? And where you feel comfortable, ask someone, how they choose to identify. We were networking outside tonight before we came in here. And if I met someone and I said, hi, I'm Narissa, and they said, this is my name, and if I didn't catch it, I would say, sorry, what was that? Let me know again. And when they told me their name, I now know their name, so now I can say, and I can pronounce it the right way. It's the absolute same thing when it comes to asking people how they identify. And when people tell us, it's then really important for us to use their pronouns, he, she, their, theirs. And if we don't know their pronouns, we just use their name until they tell us how they choose to identify. So I want to leave you with that today, and I just want to leave you with this one quote, which I believe sums up what we hear about tonight in terms of learning, growing, leadership, communication, and inclusive language. And that is by the lovely Maya Angelou, where she says, do the best until you know better. Then when we know better, do better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Narissa. And such an important thing around, do we feel like we are included or excluded? And such an important topic of conversation and an important aspect of our leadership. But I also want you to think about too, in your gravity of leadership, is the language you use inclusive? Is the body language that you utilize inclusive? And is your behavior inclusive? Because those three aspects, if we can go deep down and focus on those and bring them alive, no matter who the individual is inside your company, they're going to have a greater chance of feeling like they belong. Common term, guys, is used around the world right now. Every time I hear it, I shudder because I know subconsciously it is excluding a number of people in the room when it's referred to for everyone. But these are things we've grown up with, and so it's difficult to change from some of those. But being aware of what we say, how we use our nonverbal communication, and how we behave is going to shift our gravity of leadership. Now, change is occurring every single day, and obviously some days we have massive change, some days small change. But to talk about embracing and embodying change is a Prosy, like high-level certified leader across the Asia Pacific. Please welcome back to the stage, Diane Mccabe.
Thank you, Craig. And I get to stand this time, which is a lovely change. Very good. So we are going to talk about change and embracing and embodying change as leaders. So I'm going to come with a warning for a start off that there is going to be a buzzword bingo. So any of these, I will guarantee I will say all, if not the majority of these as I talk through this presentation. So feel free, if you've got pen and paper in front of you, to do a tally. You can let Craig know at the end whether I have scored high or low on this. But let me be serious about this, because yes, there are buzzwords and we all roll our eyes when we hear these buzzwords and we tune out to change. But there are two things that I want you to consider about change as I go through this segment. And the first one is, change has never been this fast and it will never be this slow again. So let that sink in, and I'm going to say it one more time. Change has never been this fast, and it will never be this slow again. So if we think we're pedaling really fast right now, we're going to keep pedaling. And we're doing this at a time when our people in our organizations are running on empty. There's so much fatigue, and I know that's another buzzword, but there's so much fatigue in the people in our teams where we're trying to usher them through change. And it's not just at this level of the organization, it's all levels of the organization. So from the CEO right down to our frontline leaders, everyone is feeling fatigued in some way. So there's the doom and gloom. Okay. So where do we go from here? What is not working? So there are a few things that are not working. And yes, I'm stating the obvious for some of these. So the old carrot and stick, which worked for many, many years, where it's like, we'll give you this, but then we're going to hold you to account to that. That has its place in every organization, but when the wheels start to go off, we have a tendency to go back to the carrot and stick. I've proven the buzzword bingo doesn't work, so having the buzzwords out in the organization, the message no longer lands for our people. And lastly, like I said when I was on the panel here, there is no one size fits all. When we try to copy what other organizations are doing, what other leaders are doing, it may not work in our team, in our department, in our organization. So thanks, Diane. We're all feeling really down in the dumps now. So tell us, what do you actually recommend for this? So let me bring it to you what I think you need to do. You need to expose yourself. She said what? What did she say? Seriously? You're in a room full of HR leaders and you're telling them to expose themselves. And not only am I telling you to expose yourself, I'm going to ask you to encourage everyone else to expose themselves too. So I better explain. So what I want you to do is expose yourself in a way that you start to tell some of your stories within your organization. And when I say exposing yourself, I mean to bring yourself down in the organization, to meet yourself where people are at. Come with that sense of human connection. Because when we come from a place of, I'm the CEO, I'm the CFO, I'm the head of this department, I am a supervisor in this area, that creates separation between us. So when we come to people with our stories of leadership, that collapses the organizational structure. It reminds people that, hey, we're all human. None of us have this figured out. And lastly, what it does, which I think is the most important, it encourages people to take personal responsibility for leading themselves through change. So I'm going to be a little bit bold and ask you to take away some homework. I want you to start thinking about this now, but there are 3 areas that I want you to consider about stories, your personal stories in your organization. But before I do that, I want to ask a show of hands, first of all, who feels really comfortable sharing vulnerable stories within their organization? Oh, we do have a few. I love it. Do you get that gut-wrenching feeling when you're just about to tell them and your knees wobble a little bit? I see Grant shaking his head over here. I know we've got a seasoned professional in the room. But I do want you to look at this. So this is not just a once upon a time, this is a story that occurred to me. There are 3 stories I want you to reflect on. The very first one is your pandemic story. How did you cope going through the pandemic? And when I say that, I don't mean there was this one time I had COVID. It's literally a story about how did you, when you reflect back on that time, how did you cope? How did you get through it? What were your trials? What were your triumphs as you went through that? Because people in your organization want to hear about this. And in case you're afraid people are going to roll their eyes about this, I want you to think of your non-pandemic story. So, before COVID, when we had stories, other things that weren't related to COVID. But your non-pandemic story is, have you ever been made redundant? Have you ever been passed over for a promotion? Have you ever applied for lots and lots of jobs to leave an organization and kept getting the knockbacks? No matter what it is, maybe there's a project that you led that failed terribly, but you have some great insights from it. So each of you have huge stories to tell, and you're doing your people a disservice by keeping them to yourselves. The last story, and this is for the people who I encourage to really, really dig deep. And as we're approaching Are You OK Day, as we are approaching World Mental Health Day, I would encourage you to think a little bit strongly about this one, because well-being is one of the most important things in all of our organizations. So what is your well-being story? How can you share that in your organization? And I'll give you an example of my well-being story. My corporate career got cut, I won't say short, but it definitely ended when I had a mental health breakdown. And then I got made redundant. And yes, life fell apart and it took quite a long time for me to get back and get myself back on track. But I went back to the organization that I had my breakdown, thanks to Speakers Institute, so Sam was instrumental in this. But I found the confidence to go back and tell my story in that organization on Are You OK Day. And the people in the room who knew me, who had worked with me, came back and were inspired. Some of them called psychologists, called their GPs, called the employee assistance program. So you have that in you as well. Yes, there are plenty of keynote speakers and you can call Sam or any of us at any time, but having someone you know and trust in your own organization speaks volumes. So I want you to think about those stories that you have. And these are not, we're not going to ask you to come up on stage at your next all hands event and just declare what this story is. You can talk about it in your one-on-one meetings. You can talk about it when you give feedback to the people on your team. You can talk about it when you're having that career conversation with your team members as well. Weave them into it, and every time get a little bit more vulnerable, share a little bit more. It's not about the advice, it's about the pain. And when Nick mentioned earlier about feeling into change, and feeling is the secret to change, making sure that you're sharing some of the pain as well as some of the triumphs. If you do that, you will be a leader who will inspire change. Why? Because you're demonstrating that you are a leader who embraces and embodies change in your organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And I think she's an inspiring, great leader, and really, really appreciate when Diane speaks and shares, her story and how that can help other people. Now, when it came to creating Speakers Institute corporate, people would have thought, oh, you did a SWOT analysis, you did a competitive analysis, and I answered no to both of them. When we created the company, we didn't want to be tainted by what everyone else was doing. We didn't want to be trying to compete against another company. We literally wanted to create a whole new canvas. And so what you're going to see next is a crucial part of that canvas, and that is facilitating as a team. So we don't go into organizations and choose one facilitator and present and facilitate to 20 people. We always go in with 3. We go in with a program manager and a technician when we're online. Because, and even when we come in person, we always like to facilitate as teams because it's about the participants and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. As we know, people learn in different ways. People connect differently to different people. And we want to make sure that we have an incredibly diverse approach to the way that we facilitate. So if you come to me and say, you're a bank and you're looking for a leadership program that helps in emotional intelligence, then I'll go, okay, great. Who has worked in the finance sector? Okay, Demian, fantastic. You'd be really good for that. And then I'll go, okay, who then is amazing from an emotional intelligence person? And then I might choose Jessica. And then I go, who is completely different to both of them, doesn't work in their industry, hasn't worked with them before, but brings something different and unique, and then I'll choose them and put them in a team. Because it's not about us, it's about the learning of those in their organization and how can they learn to broaden their horizons. So to talk about next generation corporate training, please welcome back Demian Curry and Jessica Kiley.
Hello, everybody. I've missed you. Okay. What we're talking about here is next generation corporate training. You know how to play this game. I want you to break up into half tables. I want you to describe to someone what is something genuinely new and interesting that you have seen in corporate training in the last 5 years. And if there's nothing interesting, nothing new or interesting that you've seen in the last 5 years, then that's interesting in itself. Right now, start now, go. What's something new and interesting that you've seen in the last 5 years in corporate training? Okay, let's all come on back. Let's all come on back. Let's all come on back. You know what amazes me? When I look at the amount of change in any field of human endeavor, I measure it by how long ago it was that if someone come from maybe 10 years, 30 years, 50 years or whatever, would they find it really difficult to recognize what was going on? Like in manufacturing, 20 years. Someone was in manufacturing 20 years, seeing manufacturing methods now, unbelievable. Medicine, 10 years. If you were out of the game 10 years, you'd find it really difficult to cope. Administration, maybe 40 years. The office of 40 years ago, very different from now. Corporate training has hardly changed since the original model in the Roman era, 2,000 years ago. In fact, I remember, by the way, any other Latin scholars? Anybody forced to learn Latin at school? Okay, very good. Yeah, I thought you looked familiar. You know, in fact, in my Latin class, when the teacher entered the room, we go, "Salve, magister," where we get the word magistrate, with whom you cannot argue. And the teacher would say, "Salvete discipuli," disciples, followers, those who will not argue. We haven't changed corporate training in the last many decades. What we're going to look at now is what we can expect for the next generation of corporate training. And there's a common theme here. That typically, when we prepare a training program, what do we do? What do we think first? We think, what do I have to get across? We go information first, true or not? You've got to prepare a presentation. What do you do? What do I need to, what information do I need? Well, here's the problem that I think I need to address here. Is a problem, and I don't like to be the person that reveals this problem that you have, but it is my hard lot to do. You're all very smart people. I'm sorry to break it to you. I try to be gentle, but you're very smart people, and you cannot stand the thought of other people not understanding things as well as you, true or not? Like, you just can't say, like, you understand something, and you think, oh, okay, it's so beautiful that I understand this, and you prepare a presentation, and what do? You immediately grab your PowerPoint, and you start pushing stuff in. You 7 minutes, plenty of time, let's get some more slides in. What we need to do is shift that to end the information-first approach, and there are 3 fundamental principles. The first one you've already seen. It is Jessica's favorite. Describe.
Yes, thank you. It is one of our key ones that we do all of the time. And you've probably noticed every single one of our presenters has done it as well. And it's the connection before content. And having that in mind when you're thinking about what you want to share, as well as your very first moments when it's time to do that training. It's how can I connect people to the content, connect to the space we're in together, connect to the people who are in it and doing it together. And this is online, hybrid, in person. So the way that Demian just did it right at the beginning was he got you all to answer a question and discuss it with the people right next to you. So straight away, you're connecting to the content. Rather than us just doing a push straight away, it's where is the connection to the content first. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. The question is a really great way. Getting comments from the room and sharing their wisdom in the room in the first place, where you're not assuming you're the only one with the knowledge, and it gives you a great sense of where are people at right at the beginning. Then they get to connect with each other as well. So the connection before content is a key one to make sure that you're not just going into push. It's a two-way right from the beginning. I also love this one as well because it's where you get the dynamism from as well. You get the energy moving straight from that very first moment. But there are more pillars that we need to keep in mind. Demian?
Okay.
What's the next pillar?
If you have ever heard a presentation where the person starts saying, we better get into this, we've got a lot of material to cover, you know they've already failed the number 1. Right? But the number 2 is again an inversion. Theory outside, practice inside. Has anybody ever heard of the concept of the flipped classroom? Okay, yeah, if you ever I think it started with the Khan Academy, it is amazing. The idea is the critical resource everybody has is time. And in training, it is time with the facilitator. That time we can get people together and have them with the facilitator. Why would you waste that time with simple instruction? The idea is to get the instruction done outside, get the lesson done outside, so when people are together, that time with the facilitator can be used for practice. And I'll tell you why this is important. Not only is it a better use of time, it is key learning because of the tight feedback loop. The idea of handing your homework and a day later you get it corrected or you get feedback on it, it's good, but a long way from great. When the feedback is instantaneous, when you have that tight, almost real-time feedback loop, that is when everything in the brain happens. In fact, what we do, I've watched Jessica do this with remarkable impact when she's teaching people breathing. Okay? You learn the breathing techniques outside, and when she gets people breathing, she'll get everybody standing up, and she'll actually be watching people breathing. She says, no, your lungs, your chest is too high, you're breathing too high, lower it down. She'll actually work with them. Okay, to the next person. You're actually feeling the learning. You're feeling the difference. You're having someone shape the behavior you're learning right there. That is key. But that is a subset of the third pillar.
Any guesses? I'd like to see, Demian, if we've got any guesses in the room on maybe what you're seeing as the next generation corporate training and a key pillar in there.
Hey, yeah. What is your job as trainers?
Before
What
we
is your job?
reveal like The Price is Right or Family Feud, like any guesses or things that you've seen out there as well? Follow up?
Good.
Great. Yes, because one of Demian's famous angst is that we overtrain. Yes, but it's not actually implemented a lot of the time. So the follow-up's really important. I like that one. It's not ours, though. Yeah? But it's a good one. What else? Any others?
Feedback.
Feedback. Nice. Great. And that's a key one that we love to do is, and there's lots of people in this room who have done some of our programs where you get feedback straight away. It's the best way to then actually make the adjustment, that tight feedback loop that Demian was talking about. Any others? Engagement. Yeah. Do you mean by making it engaging? And then it's actually implemented.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The actually implemented is very important to see if it's actually worked or not. All right, I'll let you know. You're close, but not quite. Create an experience. So we've done that this evening. Hopefully you've all had somewhat of an experience and not felt like you're just sitting passively. It's where can we actively get involved? How can we make it engaging? And when we think about an experience, it's then a journey as well. So the journey is part of that next generation corporate training. Not just once off and finished and tick it off and move on. It's how is it part of a journey? How it can be a part of the micro learning that people are looking for as well. At the time, when I need it, when can I learn it, then can I implement it and get the feedback on it. And the research is showing that it's actually that learning and development that people get within their organizations is becoming the number one thing they're looking for over and above the remuneration. Because they can see that the skills they have now within 3 years will probably be somewhat redundant. So how are you helping me to keep up? And we would love to suggest that considering making all of these as the pillars, regardless of whether it's in an AI, a VR, in the metaverse, using Meta, whatever it might be, because you've got all of those tools to use these days within training, within corporate organizations. How can we ensure that those 3 pillars are there so that the training sticks and really helps that organization to move forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Demian. All right. Now, what's fascinating, you talked there quickly around the importance of the tight feedback loop. Now, we all know we've been in those organizations where we have the 6-month and the 12-month reviews, and we know they're pointless because what we did 364 days ago, we've forgotten about, and if they're still focusing on that, what I've already progressed already. So how can you keep that tight feedback loop going? By ensuring that every single day, every single interaction, you're sharing feedback in a positive way, but also a way that they can learn and grow. So I want you to think about this. When you give feedback, give 20% positive, what they did well, 80% what they can work on. Now, a couple of quick tips before I introduce our last speaker for the night is that you can't just say, oh, you did really well, that was amazing, awesome, complete waste of time. Because we'll go, oh yeah, we're awesome, we're amazing, but then we forget about it really fast. So what was it? It needs to be positive reinforcement. So I love the way that you interacted with the client today. It was the first time I'd see you look at them in their eyes and connect with them. Okay, positive reinforcement. Now they know which behavior to do regularly. But then when it comes to what can they improve, then we need to do it in a way that's not a personal attack. You did this, you did that, you did this. Why did you do that? But if we can change the language to what I observed was, this is what I saw, this is how I felt. Next time, maybe you can consider. So now it's not a direct attack. It's really important that we approach it in that way. And then people can grow and learn quickly. Now, we've had lots of things happening over the past 2.5 years. And a lot of people talk about bouncing back. But our next guest, who hasn't really officially been announced yet, is the founding partner of Speakers Institute Corporate. He has written 11 books, 5 New York Times bestsellers. Comes from a beautiful family there in Tasmania. Please welcome my partner in crime, Mr. Sam Cawthorn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for that amazing intro, Craig, that I wrote. All right. All right, I have been thinking a lot about this last conversation and actually how I can add as much value as I can. I love this word decision, or the word decide. It actually comes from the Latin word decidere, and that word decision, like the word scission, means to cut. We know that, yeah? So the word scission means to cut. And the word decide, the word side, yeah? Suicide, pesticide, the word side means to kill. Isn't that interesting? So the word decision means to cut off and kill. And I believe the world lacks leaders right now that make decisions. Why? Because we love keeping our options open. We love sitting on the fence. But tonight I'm actually going to take you through a bit of a journey of discovery, maybe in some decisions that you need to make in order for what do you need to do to even upgrade a skill. And we've heard a lot of different type of skills that we can upgrade here tonight. But also, actually, how can we go from where we are today to the possibilities of tomorrow, whatever that might be. And I'm going to do this through the power of story. And we've heard a lot about story, but I'm going to share with you a really cool story. A few years ago, I won this award, Young Australian of the Year. They flew me up through to Canberra, and I flew my mum and dad there. And you know how sometimes things don't always go according to plan, yeah? So here I am, I'm about to meet the Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, yeah? But I'm thinking to myself, what can I do in order for the Prime Minister to remember me? Because as you know, PM probably meets hundreds of people every day, as if they remember everyone that they meet. So I had one of my prosthetic arms on. So clearly I've got a story. I think we've all got stories. But I've got a whole heap of different type of prosthetic arms. I've got one for playing golf. I've even got a swimming arm. I've got a bionic arm. It's like the most advanced bionic arm in the world. I even program it with my iPhone 13. Seriously, I've got an app for my arm. Actually, if you guys downloaded the app, you can control my hand, right? Actually, I've got 8 arms all up. How many arms do you have? So anyway, I'm about to meet the Australian Prime Minister, but I had my cosmetic arm. So my hand looks exactly the same as my normal hand. So if I wore a long sleeve jacket on, which I was on the day, you can't notice at all that I have a prosthetic arm. So I went up to the Prime Minister of Australia. He sees me, comes over to me, and he come to shake my hand. As the Prime Minister of Australia went to shake my hand, I detached my hand and my hand came off into his hand. So, Glenn McGrath, Adam Gilchrist, a few other celebrities there, they saw what was happening. They just started pissing themselves laughing. The world's media came in, taking photos, everything. The Prime Minister's Kevin Rudd standing there holding my hand, right? And in his Australia Day speech, he said, look, today we're surrounded by very significant Australians. We have Aboriginal elders, we have community leaders, we have sports heroes, but nothing can ever beat the intro I had to Sam this morning. Because when you meet Sam, it's an extraordinary experience, because when you shake his hand, he'll leave his hand in your hand. And in his Australia Day speech, the PM actually then looked over to me and he goes, and thanks, Sam, I'm still recovering from therapy today. Actually, I just wanted to give you some actual evidence that this really did happen. As you can see, there's Adam Gilchrist there in the back, and there's a PM's wife, Therese. She's just lost it, right? And the Prime Minister of Australia is just handing me back my hand. It was certainly a very funny moment, that's for sure. I think we all have moments, though. And moments can be hilarious, but other moments can be quite life-defining and life-challenging. Recently, I came across a word, and the word was called this, kairos. Get this. Kairos is the Greek word for time. So contrasting to chronos or chronological time, meaning ordinary or normal time, kairos time is laden with meaning and choice. So get this, the dictionary meaning of the word kairos is a moment within a moment, a particular moment in where drastic change takes place. It's a moment within a moment. My kairos moment happened a few years ago. I had a major car accident. The police said it was a 206-kilometre head-on collision with a semi-trailer truck. And it was my fault. It was my fault. I fell asleep behind the wheel. I veered over the other side of the road and I was going 104 and the truck was going 102. It was a combined impact. However, what we do know is that things don't always go according to plan. And even though at the time I was working for the Australian federal government as a youth futurist, from that moment on, there was just a local youth group asked me to share my story, and then a school then asked me to share my story. This was 16 years ago. And I suppose then the rest is history. I then became a professional speaker. I've now spoken in over 50 countries and continue just to love inspiring other people and how they can also share their story in a really powerful way. But there is a few ways that really helped me in order for me to bounce forward from my own accident, both in my professional life and my personal life. Let me just share with you these 3 ways, and can I encourage you, if you can, write this down. I've actually shared these principles to many people all around the world. Let's have a look at the very first one. It is master communication for influence. Now, what we've already seen here is so many various ways how we can master communication for influence. But what we do know is that when it does come to communication in general, there's 2 main parts, and we've already discovered this. One is the content, what we say, so these are the words that we say, and the other is the method, how we say it. And I think it's really important. A lot of the time, whenever we are presenting or preparing for a presentation, we spend all of our preparation in this is what we're going to say. But what we've already discovered tonight, that the fundamental part of influencing someone is going to be in the method, how we say it. That's everything from body language to gestures, tonality, facial expressions, and the like. The second thing that really helped me was story showing trumps information. I've actually written a book on this, and actually at my promoter over here, and it's great to see Sharon, really, really good. We actually then launched that, and we got it to top 50 New York Times, which was really, really exciting. But the bottom line is that when it does come to stories in general, I believe we've all got a hero inside of us. And your story is your number 1 trump card. No one on the planet has your story. And my encouragement to you is when you share your story, you can inspire others to get through what you went through. I would even go as far as to say this: your story is no longer yours to own. Your story is there to help other people go through what you've been through. So share your story more, because I believe there are beautiful heroes right in this room. And really the tipping point for story showing for me was this, is that an average storyteller will inform, a good storyteller will persuade, a great storyteller will inspire. And bottom line is, I love inspiration. I'll go and watch the latest Top Gun movie and I'm inspired by that, yeah? But inspiration will not necessarily lead to action. Have you found, we can be really inspired on a night like tonight, but then the reality is we'll go to our workplaces tomorrow and we'll get busy in our ordinary, everyday, busy lives. So there has to be a shift. And the shift started to happen a few years ago. Everyone sort of started to talk about visual storytelling, but we're still using this word tell. And to be quite honest, we're sick and tired of people telling us what to do. We are, aren't we? We're at home and our parents tell us what to do. We're in school and our teacher tells us what to do. And then all of a sudden we're in the workplace and our boss tells us what to do. Now all of a sudden we have to be storytellers. Let me share something with you. If I said, let me tell you something, compared to me saying, let me show you something, see how that lands? We've suddenly gone from head to head, more now heart to heart, which then means an excellent story shower will transform. What's transformation? I've been informed, I've been persuaded, I've been inspired, but now I'm ready to take action. But this isn't the tipping point. The tipping point is what we like to call transcendence. Transcendence is like an outer body experience. It's like a sense of timelessness. When we transcend others' ways of thinking, all of a sudden we forget to look at our watch. We don't even take out our phone and surf TikTok. Why? Because we're transcended in that moment. And I believe every single one of us can transcend others' ways of thinking when you learn it. And then the last one here was people follow people. Now, we've actually got a gift for everyone here in this room when you leave, which is awesome. And I've actually put one of my books in your gift bags as you walk out. And that book, in most cases, will be one of these books. It'll either be Bounce Forward, it'll either be Story Showing, or it might be People Follow People. But what we do know is this, is that what we're living right now in what we call the profile economy, where we no longer trust brands, companies, logos, organizations, products, governments, media. We now trust human beings. And we've seen a massive trend when it does come to following brands, logos, companies, organizations, and now we're following human beings. People follow people. Elon Musk has 400 times more followers than Tesla and SpaceX combined. What we're now seeing is that this here is your greatest visual asset within your company, within your organization, within your teams, within your marketplace. And so it's now about being brave to put this face out there, because by the way, you're all really good looking. Let me just finish with this. This here is my younger brother. His name is David. Everyone say hi, David. He's my best mate in the world. We hang out all the time. He's the youngest in my family of 11. Yes, there's 11 in my family. I'm an uncle 39 times. Seriously, I've got 39 nephews and nieces. That's what happens down there in Tasmania. So he's my best mate and he's my best friend, and just recently he was diagnosed with cancer. And it's really hard me seeing my best friend and my younger brother going through chemo, radiation, lose all his hair, everything like that. But I suppose the good news was I was the same blood match as him. So I donated my own bone marrow to my brother. And we're all believing, David, mate, you're going to get through this, you'll be fine. But he actually passed away, he died. And it was really sad me saying goodbye to my best mate, my younger brother. But sometimes things don't go according to plan. We can plan to go in one direction, but life situations, life circumstances will take us in a complete different direction. And yes, there's a time for trauma, there's a time for sadness, yes, there is a time for grieving, but there's also a time for us to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and continue to move forward. So I wanted to ask you a question. What was your kairos moment? What was that moment within a moment that had drastic change in your life? And tell me something, did you bounce back from that? or did you actually bounce forward? I do know that our greatest days are ahead of us. Why? Because the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. You've all been amazing tonight. It's so good to see your beautiful faces out here and leaning in as what we've gone through is showing you some aspects of the future of leading people and culture, as well as different ways that we can help you through our corporate training. Now, at Speakers Institute Corporate, we not only do communication and presentation training, but we also do leadership, well-being, client centricity, and organizational design training, which is all designed bespoke for your particular environment. We don't take anything off the shelf and give it to you. We actually co-create it with you to ensure that you're getting the best learning experience for the outcomes that you desire. Let's give a big round of applause to our team that we're presenting tonight. Big thank you. So we've now got around half an hour where you can continue to network with us. You can, there's some more food and drinks out there as well. Good chance to connect. If you want to talk to our team about anything they mentioned tonight or what we do, please take that opportunity. And we look forward to having a conversation with you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.